And we are live. Just going to drop this link in here for Terry so you can post into the network for you guys. Bear with me. All right, and we're live. Welcome back to the weekly roundup. We've got some good stuff today. Number one, someone stole my motorcycle, and I have this scar on my face. We're gonna tell some stories to start it out here. I think it's important as a yogapreneur to take a little bit of time off. So in the last month, my family and I always try to travel back to Canada to visit family there. We've got aging parents, etc. So we think it's important for the kids to be around them. So we went back for a few weeks, but most of the time I was actually working, did a couple of on-sites at studios in Vancouver, which was really fun. But then, so between traveling around and...
Excuse me, Josh, I have to interrupt just for a second. You said aging parents. Your parents are my age, basically. So thank you very much for that. Shout out for aging.
Aging parents, but also, you know what? They're going crazy. I'll say that straight up. So they're aging and more crazy than you. Terry's still in the not crazy age category.
Okay,
so,
thank you very much. I just want that.
I think it's all the business coaching. I think it's all the business coaching you do. Keeps that cognition working perfectly. All the yoga as well. In any case, traveling around, went for some good hikes, downhill mountain biking. I hit a huge drop in Whistler downhill mountain biking that I haven't hit in years because I'm usually too scared of it. You know, no problems. Driving back from BC to Alberta, we stop at a Ramada Inn on the side of the highway. And you know how, with the water slide, and you know how they have those signs like, don't go head first down the slide. Don't go head first down the slide. I'm freaking, after all of the like risky stuff we're doing, I smashed my face on the slide and had to go get 6 stitches. This thing is still all swollen and everything. So that's been really fun. But it just made me think about how during the summertime, it's this unique time where you get to, and even September right now, like we're just coming out of this, right? It's this unique time where you can kind of have some personal time, but then also you get to work a lot on the business. Not because you're not busy. The studios I've been at have been really busy. And I know, Terry, you can pipe in on this too, but some of the studios that we're coaching with, they're having their biggest months ever in July and August, like not just in summer, but like ever. But there's a unique balance point. And the one thing that it just made me think of is, I don't know if it's just the weather in the Northern Hemisphere or what it is, but it's almost just like your mentality shifts and you relax a little bit about like, oh, well, it's sunny outside. So I'll go out and do the sunny thing and whatever. So even if you're doing the same workload, it's like less stressful often is the discussion I've been having with a couple of people we've been coaching with. So I wanted to point it out that you should carry that into the fall as well.
Yeah. I'm gonna interject that just for a second. I think I think particularly in this country, I think a lot of it has to do with the summer vacation mode. And even if you don't have kids, even if your kids are out of school, there seems to be this, you know, in the summer, it's vacation time. It's, you know, it's at that feel. And so I think that might be part of it too. And I do think having more light plays into it because
definitely,
you know, all of that stuff. So, but I do think it's still tied to that school thing, in my humble personal opinion.
Oh, I think so too. And the point being though, it's a mentality. So I'm highlighting the mentality because one of the things that I've been having discussions with is a few of the owners describing like how stressful their like January through March time of year is, or like coming into November, December as well in the business stress. And just saying like, well, why is it more stressful? And we really, like, if we look at it really logically, they're not actually doing that much more in the business, maybe a little bit, but like there's more energy in the business. So it's just taking the more relaxed attitude of like, we're just going to stay focused, doing the things that we need to do and check the boxes, cross the T's, dot the I's, keep moving forward one step at a time, but don't let the stress sort of overwhelm you. So I think this is the time of year where there's a transition for a lot of studio owners because we're moving from that summer vacation mode into like, let's go time mode here again. My motorcycle got stolen. Why does this matter? So here's the point about stress and everything else. I thought I got back from Canada and then immediately, like 2 days later, left and flew somewhere else to do another sales training with the team at a couple studios. And in that turnaround time, it was like the shenanigans of my son started a new school and coming back to the house after being away for a month during rainy season. Things here were like all damp and we had to like get the house cleaned up, and it was just like really compressed high stress time. And then I'm like leaving and need to hold space for this enormous team of like 50 people, et cetera, et cetera. So then even the day of, I'm leaving to the airport on my motorcycle and I mess up the times and I'm going to be late. So then where the parking lot is, there's two entrances, or there's an exit and an entrance, but you have to drive all the way around the airport to get to the entrance. And I was a bonehead and I'm like, screw this. And I entered through the exit and just parked my bike in the parking lot, park and leave, etc. and go on the trip. I come back, my motorcycle's gone. So I'm thinking they busted me for entering through the exit instead of doing, and like must have towed my bike. So I spend literally the rest of the day when I come back trying to figure out, no one knows what I'm talking about. They don't even believe me the bike's there. By some fluke, I parked between two cameras. So like my parking spot, you can't see it on any of the cameras or whatever. Finally, we find the bike, but it's not me on it. And it's leaving through, comically, it's leaving through the entrance. So, but there's like a guy with his girlfriend on the back driving away on my motorcycle. Like it was all locked up and everything. They just knew what they were doing. So from the airport, right next to the National Guard, someone hijacked my bike and it's out there somewhere. So I've spent the rest of the week since being back dealing with that. But strategic planning and being an idiot about this, because I did this in a rush and got there and parked that way. I don't have the ticket that proves that it was entered at X time because I went inside and got the parking ticket, because you can do that. So I don't have the proper ticket, so they won't cover anything. And because insurance here is difficult, it's hard to say that they're gonna cover anything. Long story short, I think I've just totally lost the bike, but it's my fault because I didn't just like plan and be calm and do the go through the thing properly. I was more reactionary in that moment. So sometimes these things happen and they just get thrown in your face. Why does this relate to yoga studios? Let's spin it over to you guys. I've been experiencing that a lot of people are having good success right now, but also it is just like a kind of weird moment with staffing, with like ebbs and flows of the business, with a lot of businesses needing reinvestment now again. So we're finding a few owners in quite a reactionary state. I was on even a free coaching call just yesterday with someone who is just like in this complete reactionary state of just like wanting to throw all the spaghetti on the wall to try to solve something. And the problem with that is that's not strategic decision making. And we're seeing some decisions being made that really run risk for the business. So that's where you don't want to lose your motorcycle. You know, that's the whole detail here. But let me spin it to you guys. Carol, maybe you can pipe in on this.
Yeah, I mean, it brings up for me, the stress of being a studio owner a lot of times is sometimes caused by our own non-planning, like you're saying, you're just being reactionary. And then there's like the cleanup afterwards, like, why did I do this? So you're continually like just not using your time efficiently. And so I think that's where coaching a lot of times is a big part of that answer and help to de-stress the situation, because you have somebody there to bounce ideas off of and kind of guide you through what is the most effective and efficient use of your time. Where should your energy be flowing in order to create more profit in the business. And the other thing is, what brings up for me, and what I've learned so much when I was on the other side of things, was there should be strategy behind all your decisions. I mean, that's part of the, again, exposing yourself to too many things going on without really thinking it through. A lot of times as a studio owner, I just did things because this sounds good. You know, it feels good. But on the other side, I didn't prove to be profitable. It didn't prove to like get me anything on the other side of it. So then again, it's my time was not wasted, but expended without getting something out on the other side of things, right? So that's just sort of where my mind was going with that whole situation. And so that's where I'm working with some of my clients where like, let's think about this. Let's talk about what problem are you solving? What do we need to really focus on to get you on the other side, de-stress, and make your business more profitable. So.
This is a really important point. I totally agree with what you're saying. And this has come up a lot recently with people I'm working with too, that this concept that in a yoga studio, you're never not going to be busy. Like you can be busy all the time, doing tasks, doing a bunch of stuff. So making yourself busy isn't hard. Like doing a bunch of work. That's why the whole like anti-hustle and grind culture is such a big thing. It's really easy to like work really hard and create stress for yourself and be busy doing stuff. That's not the same thing as being productive though. So the cost of the situation you're describing, non-strategic decision-making around where you're focusing your efforts and time, the cost isn't that those things are bad. The cost is the loss of forward momentum, really. It's the opportunity cost. And, you know, it's the simple analogy, like if you're hiking on the hiking trail from point A to point B, if you can stay on the trail, you'll get there pretty fast. But every time you stop and tangent off the trail to go look at the river and then climb up here to go check out the meadow, like then the trip takes longer. So is that negative? Not necessarily, but it's just staying focused on like, what are you actually trying to accomplish? What are we really trying to solve? So if you find yourself really stressed and really busy, I think that one of the smart practical applications here, Terry, I know you've got a couple ideas on this too, is like to really just pause for the 5 seconds, talk it through with your coach and really ask the question, like, why are we doing this? What is the problem that we're solving? What is the outcome that we're trying to achieve here? Like, how do these actions get us to this bigger vision, mission, whatever of the business? How do they get us to our current goals, and really having that clarified?
Yes. And since it's very appropriate, hashtag Terry's dad, and Terry's dad would be 95 today if he was still amongst us in this realm of existence. So you heard me, if you've been around a while, you heard me talk about my dad a lot. He was my first boss, started working in the store. We grew up in a family business when I was like 5 and 6 years old, putting me to work, breaking boxes down, emptying, I'm dating myself, emptying the cigarette urn. So you guys probably are, most of you guys are probably too young to remember the days where businesses had cigarette urns and there'd be sand in the top and it had a little sifter and people would put their cigarettes out there. So obviously that needed to be emptied. And so, yeah, my father had his 5-year-old doing it. Of course, I'm sure there's some child labor law out there somewhere that you can't do that now.
Pretty sure that's illegal now.
Yeah, I'm sure it's illegal. You know, and then
I not only remember that, I also remember being like, wanting to and my dad being like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, no.
Yeah, exactly. So a lot of time, one of my father's favorite expressions was, and I think it applies to a lot of what you're talking about, is strategic thinking, and is it a knee-jerk decision versus a strategic decision? And hey, we're all guilty, ergo lots of I do's in my past, of making poor decisions and making knee-jerk decisions. And my dad always used to say, are you stepping over dollars to pick up pennies? Right? Stepping over dollars to pick up pennies. And I love that. I use that a lot when I'm going to make a note of that. Because that to me is really the essence of what we're talking about right now, is we're looking at something, a problem, whatever, and in our process to find a solution without thinking strategically, Are we literally stepping over the real solution, or not trying to uncover what the real solution is because we see something here that's going to give us that quick fix? But is it really the quick fix, or is it just going to cause problems further down the road? Or, you're picking up pennies, i.e., it's costing you money because you're leaving money behind by not taking that pause and not thinking, what is exactly the thing that we're solving for? And really isolating that. And I've seen that numerous times recently with clients, is maybe where they're not necessarily solving for the right problem because of something else going on here. And it's like by redoing your pricing or having a flash sale or something like that to get a quick hit of cash. And I'm not saying that's not wrong. It's wrong. There are times when it's strategic that, okay, I want to get this cash influx and I'm going to do a very limited thing for a very specific amount of time because this is the plan and the results that I want. As opposed to, I'm going to change all my pricing. I'm going to do all of this because all of a sudden I'm feeling like this. I'm not getting this result that I want. Okay, let's step back. That's why we have tools to help you optimize your pricing and look at that, and looking at your KPIs and seeing, okay, what really is the problem here? Is it the problem that your pricing's wrong, or is it the problem that your first visit flows is not very good, or your retention? You're getting plenty of people coming in the door. We found this at the on-site we did at our friend Shannon in Ventura in July. Was it an issue getting people in the door? Their issue was they weren't converting. They weren't selling their intro offer. And I'm happy to report, I posted about this, just in the month since we left, they've doubled the amount of intro offers that they've sold. They went from selling, not as many. Now they have doubled it. They're now at 50% of all their first visits are now buying their intro offer. That's almost double what they had. And then the other thing is, they weren't converting the people that were buying the intro offer. And they also doubled the amount of memberships they converted in that first month after we did the bootcamp sales training. And it wasn't getting more people in the door. It was training the staff that they had. So yeah, in that case, it's like, oh, we're not doing this. Maybe let's just reduce our prices because it's well, it's not a pricing issue. It's a selling and a retention issue.
Yeah.
So what's the actual problem?
Right. And I mean, we always say if you can appropriately articulate the problem, if you can actually identify the core, real, actual problem, you're 50% of the way to solving it. And that's a great example because at the previous studios at sales training, the managing team and a lot of the teaching team, that was sort of the initial pushback. They're like, well, we don't need to sell it so that people can't afford it. And I was like, is that true? Like, says who? Like, where does that information come from? Well, I just feel like it's like a lot of money. Or one of them is like, I don't know if I could afford the membership here. And it was just a fascinating perspective because it showed like they had just made a decision that was the way that they were viewing the pricing. And the only solution therefore was if we lowered our prices, more people would come in and more people would buy stuff. But what we identified in the transition that we went through with the team was that by the end of it, they were realizing actually that's not true, like factually, but also no one's buying anything because we're not pitching them at all. Like there was zero conversation about what was going on. So it was a perfect example of vaguely we could see that there was a problem, not enough people buying membership, but the specificity wasn't articulated that it was on day one coming in, that like transition that needed to happen. And their solution was also like the softball solution, wasn't going to really make the difference. And in fact, had they have done what a lot of them were proposing and like cut the membership price down by 30%, the business would just start losing money. I mean, that wouldn't actually work. So slowing yourself down, thinking about it strategically, focusing on the right thing. This makes me think as well of the Valley of Despair. There's a video I made some time ago. I'll make another one in the network here soon on this. But the Valley of Despair is this entrepreneurial concept. I think it's called the Dunning-Kruger effect or something like that. But essentially, you see the thing as an entrepreneur you know, whether it's like your business itself or like something to do within the business, and you have what we call uninformed optimism. You're like, that's the thing that's going to solve the problems for me. It's so exciting and awesome. I'm definitely going to do this thing, and it's going to make all my dreams come true, and I'm going to have success and fulfillment doing it. But then as you go, then you suddenly drop down the valley, and at some point in phase 2, you end up in informed pessimism. Then you realize that just below the surface, actually there was this work, and when we pull this lever, this one moves, and there's these costs that are involved in this that I didn't see because I didn't totally understand it and have the full picture of what it is. So we start to have our enthusiasm wane. And then you get to phase 3 and you're in the valley of despair. That's where you're like, the pain of continuing to do this, or the stress or whatever else, makes me want to just give up completely. And at that moment is where you see the new thing. And you're like, oh, actually, that didn't work for me. And I don't like this. Here's this new shiny thing. Let's go do that instead. And you go back into uninformed optimism again. And that becomes a cycle that you just stay in over and over and over. But if you're in that valley of despair and you can stay the course, then you start to go up the other side of the valley, and you end up at informed optimism, because then you can see like, okay, now I understand all of this, and I can be optimistic because I can also see how this is benefiting me, and how as I continue this, like there's a lag in effect from me doing whatever the thing is to it actually coming out to being the important thing. The example being Terry Buchanan's studio, you know, we're not selling this enough. There's all these things we do. We get a little pessimistic. I don't know if my team's going to do it. I don't know if we're going to be able to do it. Oh my God, like maybe we should just lower prices. Maybe we should just change this thing. Maybe we need to add another class. We start looking for other things rather than let's train the team and get them to sell. You stay the course, that happens, informed optimism. We start to see positivity, the team buying, whatever else. And then phase 5 is that you actually have success and fulfillment, which is what you're describing right now, that they're on the path towards. Like, then all of a sudden we're like, oh shit, we just doubled the percentage of people who are buying this thing. So that's the valley of despair. It's a very hard cycle to go through, but I think in the entrepreneurial world, especially in the yoga studio, there are so many things you can do. There are so many problems that you can solve, that like strategy of really articulating what's the most impactful thing for me to do, figuring out the right strategy is really important, because that's what sets you up to stay the course. Because it will take some effort. It will take some time. You will have to wait a second for it to really play out. Or to go back to Carol, what you were saying too, it's like, and another example of this would be, I need to have more sales. I wish I had more people on my auto pay, but I want the money right now, so I'm impatient. So instead of continuing to build up my sales team, I'm going to have a sale on an annual pass. And then you pull a bunch of people off of your auto pay, you get a little bit of money, but then in 2 months, you're in the same place again. So the new shiny thing, like, well, we could just have a sale. And you end up in this cycle of just not actually solving the real problem that needs to be solved.
And that's exactly what our clients do. It made me think when you said that about the initial optimism, and then they hit the plateau, and then they get distracted. That's why the average months on membership is like 3 to 4, because people they come in, they have that initial optimism, things are going, they might make some major changes in their lives, or in their physical body, or their mental, whatever it is. And then they hit this plateau, and it's like, it's getting harder to do. And like, and then, well, yoga's not working for me anymore. It doesn't work. It's not working for me. Then, I'm going to go try kickboxing, or I'm going to go try this yoga studio, or I'm going to try this type of thing. It's the exact same thing. As you were saying that, Josh, that's what I was thinking. It's like, and so it's no different than, okay, if that applies to the business, it also applies to our personal. And I've been talking with a lot of people too, a lot of clients lately, is what are you specifically doing around that month 3, the 100 days or so, for retention, right? Because again, we know that's a vulnerable point. So looking at, again, it's like, okay, I need to get more people, or at the same thing with the pricing and this and that. It's like, okay, well, maybe my initial retention is good. And then again, this is why understanding your numbers and understanding your exact what your retention is. And retention, I've been having this conversation, Josh, too, with a lot of people, is retention is different than churn. Right? Churn rate is basically you have, I'm just going to make a note here, is you have this many people in month 1, and then you have this many people in month 2. And there's the difference between that is the churn rate. Retention is we have this cohort of people, these specific individual human beings in month 1, and how many of bought our whatever our membership, how many of those individual human beings, Carol, Terry, and Josh, are still members 3 months later. Oh, well, Josh and Terry bailed. They're gone. Carol's the only one left. Therefore, there's a 30% retention. So that's the math.
Yeah.
Right. So it's basically individual people. You're tracking these individual people as just overall. And that is essentially the difference, very simply, between churn and retention. So
churn is the antithesis of retention.
Oh, I like that.
Retention is I stay through. Churn is of your group who leaves.
Yeah.
And churn is a rate. That's what's slightly more complex at first understanding it. It's the rate at which something happens. You don't get a churn number of 2. You get a churn number of a decimal, a percentage. It's a 5%, a 10%. It's just the speed at which something happens.
So again, that's where, what are we doing in that time frame? And like with client this week, we're chatting, and I think this is classic too, where you see people and your teachers see people, certain members all the time. And that there's this whole population of people that they don't see as frequently. And they think, oh, I have to engage with the students. I have to engage with the members. And so they're engaging with the same people that they see, they know and like, and they see all the time. But there's this whole group of people that are dropping off. And I had this conversation with a client this week. It's like, okay, you've got to get these teachers to not just talk to the same people over and over again. They're getting sucked away from the desk into conversations with the people that come all the time. And again, they're basically ignoring, and they don't mean to do it intentionally. So again, the problem there is training the teachers to do what they're supposed to do and stay the course. So again, what's the problem? The problem—
I wanted to back us.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was just to say, identifying the problem is the first step. And it's not just deciding to do something because I need this, but you haven't even identified what the problem is.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes more vaguely, I'll come back to this point. The problem is you, the owner. And I don't mean like you practically, but you like understanding wise, the way you're looking at the equation. And actually, the easiest example of this is very often a yoga teacher. The way that they're looking at sales is incorrect. They're like, oh, well, sales are slimy and bad and not yoga, and our price is too expensive. Like their entire viewpoint has to get shifted first before the practical, how do you sell someone? Because selling somebody something in a yoga studio is really, really easy. The technique is not complicated. In fact, more often than not, it's not about what you say. It's just about soliciting the conversation and then what you don't say. So that part's easy, but you have to believe in doing it. You have to like have an energy about it first. But going back to practically, how do you retain someone past that like 3-month mark? And if you identify that that's the kind of issue that you're having, and the front desk, and there's these different techniques to put in place, one of the perspectives is that you have to realize your client has lost perspective, and they're going to churn, they're going to leave when they don't know where they are anymore. The analogy we talk about all the time: you get in a boat and you leave Los Angeles and you're going to go to Tokyo. And when you're leaving the coast of North America, you can see the coastline. You're like, oh, I'm a mile away, I'm 2 miles away, I'm 5 miles away. Oh, and then it's gone. When you are arriving in Japan, you're like, oh, land ho, there it is. I'm getting closer. We're almost there. It's only another kilometer, whatever. But when you're right smack in the middle of the ocean, unless you're into Hawaii, you have no idea where you are. You don't know, like without instruments, of course, if you're just rowing the boat or pushing a canoe across or whatever, like you don't know how far you've gone. You lose that perspective. And that's the moment where you might be like, I don't know if we're going to make it. I'm going to turn back, but you might actually be 70% of the way there. Or we like change course or whatever else. So your clients are going through that with their yoga practice. When we're coaching, people we're coaching go through this with coaching. They're like, I don't know. I'm feeling like whatever. And we can see it because we have a different perspective. Like, no, we just have to stick this out. It's going to happen. Like we're tracking in the right direction. It just takes a second. Your client, same thing. They get to that month 3 and they're like, yeah, I had some progress in the start and I like it and whatever, but I'm just not really sure what's like, my enthusiasm is waning a little bit. I'm not sure how much this is really changing for me. That's the moment you have to have good interaction with them and show them the change that's happening and help them realize the positive benefits and how this is integrated into their life. Because otherwise, yeah, they're like, maybe I'll try CrossFit. They end up going and doing something else.
Oh, here.
One of the other things that we talked about before, go ahead.
I just had a thought of when you were saying that is, I know sometimes people will take pictures, like when people first start, like I wish I had like pictures of my standing head to knee when I, being a Bikram person from the beginning, and things like that. But also here's a thought I had, and I know it can be a little expensive, but it doesn't, I don't, is what if, like what maybe you do a yoga challenge or something like that, or new clients, you gave them as part of the welcome gift, like a little journal that they can track their progress. I mean, because that just when you were saying that, I thought, wow, that would be like such a great opportunity. And it could be as simple as a spiral bound notebook that you put some stickers on or something like that. Wouldn't that be kind of cool? And it's like, here's part of your welcome gift is we are including this journal so that you can track your progress and see, set down what are your goals for this. And really, wow, wouldn't that be kind of cool?
If they did it, especially. But yeah, I like the idea. I mean, this is where personal training wins in the boutique fitness world. You go in and then you do an assessment and then you do reassessments. And if they're really doing their job and you're sticking to the program, they will show you progress. So like, it's not debatable. They like make it data driven. And that's hard to do in a yoga studio because of how our business styles are formulated. But if you're doing private yoga training, I would absolutely make that part of that regime. One thing that we brought up before is the idea of how do you do some strategic decision making? How do you problem solve? What sort of a technique? And we internally talk about this too, is the idea of the 1-3-1 method. So this is especially applicable if you're going to sort of empower your team to have more autonomy and come to you in the sort of the right way about a problem. So the 1-3-1 is 1, clearly identify one single problem. You're not allowed to have a conversation about, you're not allowed to brainstorm on, Terry can't come to me and say like, here's these 7 problems that I have. And because that's not productive. How do we solve that? It's too much. So you have to pick one thing. And it forces you to really like think about what are we really solving? Like what is the actual core deeper issue? Because very often we would list 5 problems, but they're all actually just one problem. And these are 5 different symptoms of that problem. Symptom and problem is not the same thing. So really one problem. 3, come up with 3 solutions. Just gut reaction, boom, write them down. We could do this, we could do this, we could do this. And then 1, straight up, like, what do you think we should do? Like, just don't think about it logically. Don't go, just what's the one that you would pick? So 1-3-1, 1 problem, 3 possible strategies or solutions for it. What's the one that you would pick? And if you go through that process, usually you find a lot of clarity, because to back us up, this strategic thinking making and identifying the problem, it sounds a little bit like this takes a lot more effort and time. It shouldn't actually take more time. It should take about the same amount of time, but it actually buys you time in the long run because you're working on the right things. So we're not saying stop and think about this and procrastinate and don't take action. You can take action quickly. You just need to have strategy around the action. Okay, there's this problem. We need to solve it. Here's the time frame that we're going to do it within, 1-3-1, and then you move forward. It's just about like mentally slowing yourself down and not being in a panic state of like, I don't know, let's change prices, you know, and just quickly doing something like that.
It makes me also think about, you know, when we've talked about a little bit before the call, getting your team on board, you know, or like not being afraid to do things because the people, certain teachers want something a certain way, or they think it should be that way. And I think doing this exercise as the owner can give you enough clarity to say, look, here is the problem we're solving for. And this is the solution I've come up with. And I feel very confident in it. And as the captain of this ship, I'm taking the reins and this is what we're going to do. And like not doing things out of fear, but out of clarity, and getting your team on board with Notion instead of, you know, letting them kind of take over.
Right. Well, to that point, Carol, actually, it's a good transition too. So a couple of win stories that all three of us can share one or two here right now, because we're definitely seeing a lot of really powerful progress. But to this point of decision making, and like you, the owner, being the problem, but it being like a mental paradigm change, that's one of them. Is really like I haven't ever seen it. People ask the question, it comes up in the YC probably once every 6 months. Someone asks about co-ops. They're like, what about a studio as a co-op? What about whatever? We always have the same discussion on it. It sounds really nice. We've just never seen it. We have no evidence, when I say no, I mean like literally not a single studio that I know of that's gone that direction, then becomes like a hyper successful studio where all their bills are paid in full and everyone's paid really well and everyone's happy and there's a ton of students, and it's really not a single one. I haven't seen it. If you find one out there, send it to me. I will go work with them for free or whatever, just to learn their methods. But the point being, you have to take control of your own business. And that first takes like this mental shift of how you're looking at your business and respecting it for the business that it is, and respecting yourself as the leader that you are, and respecting the fact that you have these other individuals in your business who will be very powerful in your business if you can get them motivated to be working with you instead of there being any head-to-head with them. Hence the, oh, I'm scared because I don't think this teacher's going to like this. Like that, in a perfect world, isn't even a thought, because whether they like it or not isn't the most relevant thing. If you know, if you're right, you're right. The business needs this, which means this is the action we have to take, and that's what we're going to do. And if you have your people really bought in, then you should get less of that kind of pushback. But even if you do, that can't be the thing that prohibits you from moving forward. One of the win stories, Jill posted yesterday just saying like sort of thanks to the YC or whatever, but she also sent me a really nice private message. Jill and I first met, I think maybe at Mind Body Bold even, but in any case, she came to a sales training that I did, like a little group one that I did at Rosa's studio some years ago. And her words, not mine, changed the game for me. I learned so much in that single day, and it was the catalyst for changing my whole way of thinking. I became much, much better business owner through the YC, even though most of the time I was just a fly on the wall. So there's more to it than that. But, you know, for her, that's why we're in this, because for her, it was a perfect example of great yogi, really caring person, clean, beautiful studio, all the motivation in the world to try to help people, but wasn't getting the result for herself, for her clients, for her staff that she wanted. One day, not even one-on-one, just having a real depth of conversation around yoga and business and how we're serving our clients changes the paradigm. And she grabbed the reins, and since then it's been awesome. She's gone on now to just successfully sell her studio, actually to some other members in the YC as well, which is really cool. And it's a beautiful story of like, takes this studio, builds it up, now is passing the torch on to someone else, and they're going to get to keep building it up, and everyone's happy about it. It's exactly how it should be. We have another owner recently who we're talking with, maybe coming on to help on the coaching team or something like that. So their studio, Terry and I went to her studio. She also did some coaching for a while and just had a really profitable, very strong exit, you know, after 15 years to 18 years of operation. And same thing. It was like, became a yoga teacher because we wanted to do this, owned a business, took it seriously, but then like ramped it all up. And now someone else is taking that on and continuing that journey for those people. But it's because of a mentality shift from being, I'm teaching yoga and the studio is a place, a community where people come and do yoga practice, to being like, no, this is a vehicle for change. And the business operations are just the grouping of systems that allow that vehicle to function properly, to help more people and to produce profits and to produce, money, wealth for the people involved in it as well, so that there's a proper reciprocity of the effort, getting that paradigm shift. So a couple big win stories. What have you guys been seeing? Who's winning right now, Terry?
Shannon McCaslin of Radiance Yoga in Western Massachusetts had her best summer ever, even pre-pandemic. And we were talking about we were reviewing her KPIs, and she had more attendance in the summer than she actually had in the winter. And part of that is she did a summer yoga challenge. And the Summer Yoga Challenge basically launched at summer, started at the end of June and went through essentially the end of August. And there was, if people practiced, I forget how many times, they could earn a free month of yoga. So it was a little bit of a gamble just to see what would happen. And a bunch of people did it. And looking at the numbers, yes, she's not giving away, but she's basically giving away a free month of yoga to everybody who hit that goal. And she's super pumped about it because now these people have shown themselves they can have a regular yoga practice. It achieved a lot of goals, right? It kept attendance really high in the summer months. And in one of, as if you've been following the news, the hottest summers on record in this planet, some absolute off the charts triple digit record. I mean, people are still coming indoors doing yoga, and she didn't lower prices. She didn't do anything crazy other than have this yoga challenge, promoted it. And she's like, this was a big winner. And she's super, and again, had the most sales that she's had ever in June, July, and August. So a real huge shout out to her for doing that. And she's super pumped by it, dialed her team in, has been really working with them, which is especially important because she's going to be going out on maternity leave later. I mean, she's pregnant with her second child, so she will be taking mat leave early next year, but feels really confident that her team's going to be able to, we're just working to get everything really dialed in so that when she's gone, she can just relax and enjoy having her new baby. So huge win for her.
Hey, one thing I'd add to that too is, in athletics, we know this to be true, that winning teams continue to win. Like when you're winning, you know how to win. So then you mentally, you attract that. There's a law of attraction element, but there's also how you approach it is different. I think it's the same thing with your staff in your yoga studio. That instead of everyone now from that studio being like, oh, the summertime, people don't practice in the summer slump, it's not going to be busy, whatever. Now, that narrative is not true. And when you're working with them, you're they get to see there's people enthusiastically participating. They get to see that they're putting that offer on the table for, here's a membership to help with a habitual yoga practice. And then they're like, sure, let's do it. So they get to win, and then it just makes it easier the next time. The more you win, the more you want to, and the easier it is. That dopamine hit kicks in right away too. So I think that's a great example of sort of overcoming a major barrier when you see a studio like that have that sort of success.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. All right. Well, maybe we end it there for now.
Hey, that's good. We ended on a positive note.
Yeah. Keep going. September is starting to ramp up. We're seeing across the industry. I think that we're going to have a strong Q4 across the industry as well. But keep in mind that there is a lag between your actions and when you see the result of those actions. So don't wait for something to happen to you. Start doing the thing. Figure out what's the most impactful thing that you can do for your business. Stay focused on that. Make it happen, and you're going to be there. If you need help, book a free coaching call. We have a couple of slots left. Terry is full as of right now. Carol has a couple of slots. Vicky has a couple of slots. I'm full. So there's only a few coaching slots left. If you haven't heard about it, we do have all access coaching. All access is exactly what it sounds like. You get a private Slack channel with your point coach, and also the rest of the team and myself are in there. So between your calls, you have help whenever you need. It's easy to message back and forth. And you also get one call per week scheduled. So we're having a weekly check-in to really just stay on top of moving things forward. You do also get a call scheduler. So if you ever need an extra call, sort of a bonus call, an emergency call, a like, shit, we just got to get this done this week sort of situation, schedule permitting, that's also an option for you. So we're finding that the people that are working in the All Access program are seeing results extremely fast because we're able to just meet them where they need it. And they're able to just stay focused on these things. We've identified that one big domino, the big boulder, rock, the whatever analogy we want to use here right now. And then we get to work with you to solve that, integrate into your business, make sure that it actually happens.
Yeah, one of my all access clients is we're using some of those additional calls and doing a little mini sales training with her staff next Friday afternoon. So being on the all access, these are things, we're going to an hour and a half. So it is good. She got her whole team coming, and yeah, and that's just part of the program. And she's super pumped about it. Yesterday, we worked on the sales scripts, the flipping resistance, all of those assets that we'll use on that sales call. And so, yeah, so that's one of the cool things about all access is we can do those extra things, and it's just part of the program.
Yep. This is how she goes.
All
right. If that's interesting to you, Terry will put the link in the comments down below to book a free coaching call. That's where you start. We just get to talk about what does your business need right now? What is the best fit for you? And we'll be happy to hook you guys up with that. Only a couple spots left. Yeah. Go do some yoga. Have a great weekend.